My stepfather made us stand barefoot on the back deck every time we complained. That was nothing compared to what he was doing to my little brother. 4 months after my mother remarried, Garrick sat me and my sister Ilsa down at the kitchen table and set a kitchen timer between us. Complaining is a habit, he said. Habits get corrected. Every complaint, 10 minutes on the deck, shoes off. Ilsa was 14, and she laughed at him. He took her arm, walked her out the sliding door in November in socks, took the socks, and set the timer for 20. She stood out there with her arms wrapped around herself, and I watched through the glass because he told me to watch. When she came back and her feet were purple and she was shaking so hard she couldn't get her socks on. Do you understand the rule, Emmett? I nodded until my neck hurt. I was 9. My mother worked nights at a call center. She was always at work. When she got home, he said we'd had a great evening working on gratitude, and she kissed his shoulder and said she was glad we were adjusting. The rule spread fast. Saying you were tired was a complaint. Saying a shirt didn't fit was a complaint. Saying you missed our dad, who died when I was 6, was 20 minutes and a lecture on self-pity. He kept that timer on the counter where we'd see it. Some mornings, he'd wind it a half turn just to watch us look up. Ilsa figured out she could run her feet under the hot tap in the bathroom afterward. That worked until he started checking the sink with the back of his hand when we came out. Then my brother Wilder was born. He was a small, loud baby, and by 2, he was a small, loud toddler with asthma. He had a nebulizer and a rescue inhaler and a chart on the fridge. Garrick did not like the chart. He'd say kids are medicated for everything now. He'd say his own mother never had an inhaler in the house. He'd say Wilder was learning that coughing gets you attention. Wilder got quieter that year. He stopped running in the yard. He'd sit on the bottom step and breathe with his shoulders up around his ears, and when I asked if he was okay, he'd shake his head no, and then say yes. Garrick started keeping the medications in his truck. He said it was so nobody misplaced them. Ilsa and I weren't allowed to touch them. By the time Wilder was 3, he wasn't crying at all anymore, and Garrick told my mother the boy had grown out of it. My mother repeated that to Wilder's pediatrician's office over the phone and canceled a follow-up. One Saturday, Garrick went to the hardware store and left his keys on the hook. Ilsa took them. I stood in the driveway while she opened his truck. It was all in a plastic bin behind the seat. The nebulizer, the spacer, and the rescue inhaler. Still the same canister the pharmacy filled 14 months earlier, sticker and all. Ilsa checked the counter on the bottom. She was 17 by then, and she knew what it meant before I did. She said, he's never given it to him. Wilder was on the bottom step doing the shoulder thing. Ilsa picked him up, told me to grab the bin, and walked out to the road. And we went the 4 blocks to the fire station on Ridley because it was the closest place with adults. They took one look at him and took him inside. His oxygen was in the low 80s. A paramedic told my mother later he'd been living in a slow attack for most of a year, and that his lungs had scarring a 3-year-old should not have. Police went through the house that night. They found the timer. They found the chart on the fridge with check marks in Garrick's handwriting for doses that had never been given, because the canister said otherwise. And in a drawer in his workbench, they found a spiral notebook where he'd been writing it all down. Dates, how long Wilder had wheezed, how long until it stopped on its own. Neat little entries, like he was recording results. They arrested him in the hardware store parking lot. My mother came to the hospital and sat holding Wilder and cried until a nurse brought her a chair. Ilsa looked at her from across the room and said the only sentence she'd say to her for almost 3 years. You told people he was good with us. The detective asked Ilsa how she knew to check the truck. She said she didn't. She just had a feeling. Then he asked me if there was anything else they should know about Garrick. So I told him about the family in Belmont, the one Garrick mentioned exactly once, at Thanksgiving when he'd had 4 beers. He'd been a licensed foster parent there for 2 years, 9 years before he met my mother. He'd stopped after a 2-year-old in his care died in his living room, and the county had ruled it undetermined.